Tonight's story takes us to a place where nothing happens by chance. Have you ever felt that certain houses, remember? That they can sense, choose, even pull you in? There are places where a single glance can be more dangerous than words. And one touch can spark something completely forbidden. At first glance, it's just a quiet vineyard. But behind the white walls and the scent of ripening grapes lie secrets, desires. And a choice you can't run from. She came here for a break. To help her aunt. To find herself. Instead, she found something else, something that changed everything. Two men pulling her in opposite directions. A woman with rules of her own. And a truth you'll only understand at the very end. So, are you intrigued? Then let's begin. The moment I stepped off the bus, a hot gust of wind hit my face, as if the valley itself was testing whether I could handle it. Rows of vineyards stretched endlessly across the hills, and on the slope above stood a house, not just any house, but a weathered Tuscan-style estate with pale yellow stucco, terracotta tiles, and a wrought iron gate overgrown with jasmine. I stared at it, and something stirred deep inside me, a strange, aching feeling I couldn't explain. Waiting for me was Aunt Margaret, a distant relative I barely knew until I moved to the States. She had invited me to spend the summer at her vineyard in Napa Valley. Fresh air, real work, and no city noise, she'd promised in her letter. And now here I was, with $20 in my pocket and a suitcase packed more with questions than clothes. The gates creaked open, and I saw her walking down the path, tall, poised, dressed in a flowing cream linen dress, a glass of wine in hand. Her skin was bronzed, her hair a deep shade of amber. She smiled, but her eyes were wary. "Claire," she said, almost sing-song. "Welcome." We hugged, briefly, formally. Then she tilted her head towards someone behind me. I turned. A man stood by a parked car, broad-shouldered, sharp features, short blonde hair, and eyes the color of wet stone. "This is Patrick, the vineyard manager," she said. "He's in charge when I'm not around." Patrick nodded without a word and extended his hand. I shook it, feeling the weight of his gaze, observant, unreadable. It unsettled me. "Your room's upstairs," Margaret said. "You'll meet the guys later. Dinner's at 8. And Claire," she smirked, "if the house feels like it's breathing at night, it is." I thought she was joking. But her voice held no trace of humor. My room was spacious, with high ceilings and antique furniture. The old wooden floors creaked underfoot. The window overlooked the vineyard, and near it sat a chair by the fireplace. The sheets on the bed were fresh, smelling of lavender, and something else I couldn't name, something that clung to the skin. After changing, I headed downstairs. Two men were sitting on the porch. One of them stood up first, sun-kissed skin, a bit of scruff, and a mischievous look in his eyes. "I'm Ryan," he said, offering his hand. His voice was rough but kind. "Welcome to our little slice of hell." "And that's Nathan," he added, nodding toward the second man. Nathan didn't move. He lounged in a chair, arms draped over the sides, eyes fixed on me like he already knew something I hadn't told anyone. Black wavy hair, pale skin that seemed to glow in the moonlight, and those eyes, calm, almost lazy, yet full of something unsettling. "Nice to meet you," he said at last. His voice was soft, but it sent a chill down my spine. At dinner, I barely spoke. They joked, drank, shared stories like an old crew reunited. I felt like an outsider, but not excluded. More like I was being slowly woven in. Carefully. Deliberately. Like a thread into a centuries-old tapestry. Later, I stepped out onto the balcony. The moon hung low over the valley, stars closer than I'd ever seen. The air was thick, heavy with wine and something older. I closed my eyes, trying to name the unease in my chest. Then I heard footsteps behind me. "Regretting it already?" Nathan asked. I turned. He was leaning against the railing, not looking at me. "No," I said. "It's just different." This place has always been that way, he murmured. It doesn't change. We do. I didn't know what to say. So I stood beside him. Too close. Too quiet. His hand brushed the railing, almost grazing mine. And in that second, I knew, I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The morning started with shouting. Through the thin walls, I heard Patrick's grumbling voice. He was yelling at Ryan about a broken wine barrel. The house was cool, but I still felt the heat from the night before. From the wine. From the way they looked at me. From the whispered words that stayed in the air. Nathan. I couldn't get him out of my head. It was like he had slipped inside and decided to stay there, quietly. Margaret was in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing a long white nightgown that felt more like a costume than sleepwear. Her hair was loose, slightly damp. Around her neck hung a delicate chain I hadn't noticed before, a small pendant shaped like a vine twisted into a circle. Didn't sleep well? She asked, not even turning around. Barely. You'll get used to it. Dreams come later, in this place. I didn't ask what she meant. I just grabbed a cup of coffee and stepped out onto the porch. The men were already working in the vineyard. Ryan, in a soaked tank top, moved between the rows like he was wrestling the vines instead of harvesting them. His motions were loud, erratic, full of energy. Nathan was different. He worked slowly, deliberately, like he was performing a ritual. He didn't notice me at first, but when our eyes finally met, he didn't look away. There was something in that gaze, something forbidden. He didn't wave or smile. He didn't say a word. He just watched. And I couldn't stop watching back. Later, Ryan knocked on my door. He was wearing a half-buttoned shirt, his chest slightly exposed. He tossed me a pair of gloves. Come on. You're learning how to pick grapes today. What about Nathan? He's got other things to do, he muttered. Ryan worked loudly, talking, teasing, getting too close. He leaned in often, correcting my hands like I was helpless. His fingers lingered longer than necessary. He smelled like tobacco, sun, and something warm. When he laughed at his own joke, I smiled back, even though I hadn't heard the punchline. What were you doing with Nathan on the balcony last night? Nothing, I answered too fast. Good. His voice was flat as he yanked a grape bunch from the vine. I wanted to ask what he meant, but his expression had already turned cold. So I said nothing. That afternoon, I realized Margaret was gone. Patrick said she'd gone into town but didn't say where or why. The house felt different without her. Quiet, like it was holding its breath. I went for a walk. Behind the house, a narrow trail led to a small overlook. Vineyards rolled on to my left, scattered trees to the right. The sun warmed my back, the breeze played with the hem of my dress. On top of the hill, I sat on a stone and looked down. Nathan was standing alone in the middle of the vines. He looked up, and even from a distance, I felt it. Something shifted between us. He walked toward me slowly, giving me time to leave. But I stayed. Not scared to be out here alone, he asked when he reached me. Should I be? Sometimes being alone reveals things you'd rather not see. I looked at his face. He was too close. The shadow of his hat covered his eyes, but I could see his lips, slightly parted. The silence between us grew heavy. You always talk in riddles? No. This place just makes you talk that way. And are you always like this? No, he said, his mouth curling into the faintest smile. I'm usually worse. I laughed, and it surprised me. He smiled too. Not a charming smile, not rehearsed, but crooked and warm, like lightning before the storm. Then, without a word, he reached out and brushed a strand of hair from my face. Gently. But there was something in that touch that made me want to either run, or burn. You don't get it yet, Claire, he said softly. This place, it's not just a vineyard. It's already pulling you in. You watch it, and it watches back. I opened my mouth to respond, but he was already walking away. Just like that. Silent. Leaving the air charged behind him. That evening, Margaret returned. She walked onto the porch with a new bottle of wine and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She poured glasses for all of us, sat down gracefully, and said, "Tomorrow's the full moon. We'll have dinner up on the hill. It's tradition. Wear white." Patrick's jaw tightened. Ryan looked away. Only Nathan met my eyes. He leaned forward, barely whispering across the table. "It begins. 3, under the skin. Claire, Nathan, Ryan, Margaret." The morning felt heavy. Not because I was tired, but because I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. Not with eyes. With presence. Like the walls themselves held memories of others. And now, I was part of them. I slipped into a white dress, just as Margaret had asked, and stepped out toward the vineyard. The men were already working. Nathan wore a black shirt, open halfway down his chest, and leather gloves. He didn't look at me, but I knew, he sensed me there. Ryan came over first. His mood was different, sharp, tense. His movements were abrupt, almost aggressive. I tried to make a joke, to soften the mood. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to catch his eyes. "Just stop looking at Nathan so much," he muttered. "He loves putting on a show. That's none of your business." He smirked, but there was no humor in it, just a challenge. Something shifted between us. A heat. Anger mixed with something I didn't want to name. Ryan was dangerous in one way. Nathan, in another. He didn't just attract. He pulled. After lunch, I hid in the library. Old books, thick shelves, the scent of paper and dust, it reminded me of who I used to be. Of clarity. This place offered none. "You don't like the noise?" a voice came behind me. I jumped. Nathan. He walked past, trailing his fingers across the books as if reading with his skin. Then he stopped at the door and opened it. "Want to see something?" I didn't answer. I followed. He led me down a narrow hallway I hadn't noticed before. We descended into a cooler, darker part of the house. A heavy wooden door. Nathan took a key from around his neck and unlocked it. The hinges groaned. The air was damp. A wine cellar. "We keep bottles here no one drinks," he said, flipping on a single dim light. Rows and rows of wine bottles lined the stone walls. The air smelled of wood, earth, and time. I stood there in my white dress, heart racing. Why not drink them? Because they're meant for something else. I turned slowly. Nathan leaned against a stone column, half in shadow. His eyes glowed like embers. He stepped closer. His hand reached for my face, fingers brushing my cheek with unbearable slowness. I could barely breathe. "Do you feel it, Claire?" he whispered. "This place changing you?" I didn't get a chance to answer. His lips were close. His breath burned my skin. He didn't rush. He watched me. Waited. Measured how far I'd let him go. And I followed, without asking why. His hands traced down my arms, to my waist. Then the door slammed open. "What the hell is going on?" Ryan's voice cracked through the cellar like a whip. I jumped back, as if waking from a trance. Nathan stood up straight, unbothered. "We were talking," he said coolly. "Sure you were," Ryan snapped, eyes blazing. "Not the kind of anger you show in a fight, something rawer. Deeper." I had no words. Nathan walked past him and left without another glance. Ryan stayed, staring. "You don't know what you're getting into," he said quietly. "And you do? More than you think." He turned and walked away. By the time the sun touched the horizon, we gathered on the hilltop. Margaret sat at the center, draped in silver, like the moon itself had taken human form. The men stood silent in dark suits. And me, in white, like a bride. Only no one said whose wedding it was. Margaret raised a glass. The wine was dark, almost black. It burned. Tonight, she said, eyes locked on mine, the vineyard chooses. If you feel it, don't fight it. I didn't know what I was supposed to feel. But when Nathan touched my hand, heat raced through my veins. And when Ryan offered me his glass, a chill danced down my spine. That's when I knew. I was standing between them. And none of us would leave this game unchanged. The heat was unbearable. The air was thick, heavy, like it was soaked in ripe grapes and tension. Even the shade beneath the trees offered no relief. The vineyard smelled of fruit, soil, and sweat. I worked in a thin button-up shirt that clung to my skin. My hands were raw from the vines, my eyes stung from the sun and salt. But I didn't stop. I needed to prove I wasn't just a guest here. That I belonged. Ryan appeared without warning. He leaned against an old utility pole, cigarette in hand. His eyes moved over me slowly, pausing on my collarbones before locking with mine. He didn't speak at first. Just that look. You're gonna overheat, he finally said. And not from the sun. I straightened my back, trying not to show how hard I was breathing. Some people don't run from the fire, I said. Some choose to burn. He smirked. Not playfully, but with something darker. Like he'd accepted a challenge. He stepped closer, pulled off his gloves, and ran his fingers along my wrist. You're dangerous, Claire. You just don't know it yet. And you? Dangerous? Only to the ones who want to know what it feels like, to live without skin. His words hit like heat. I clenched my jaw, not breaking eye contact. Then he stepped in, not fast, not bold, but like it had already been decided long ago. If I kiss you, he murmured, will you stop me? I didn't answer. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure the vines could hear it. He leaned in. His lips brushed mine softly, like I might vanish if he pushed too hard. Then deeper. His hands gripped my waist. My fingers knotted in his shirt. I felt like he was trying to pull me into him, under his skin. It lasted a second. Or a lifetime. Then I pulled away. Sharp, breathless. No, I whispered. He didn't chase me. Too fast, he asked calmly. Too right to be right. Get used to that, he said. Out here, everything comes overflowing. I left. Almost ran, through the vineyard rows, past the crates, down the dusty path. Into the house. Into the shower. Into the silence. But there was no silence inside me. Only noise. And pulse. That evening, Margaret disappeared again. Nathan showed up as usual, silent, like a shadow. He found me in the kitchen, rinsing fruit. I heard you had a heated day, he said. I tensed. His voice was even, but something sharp lay beneath. I was just working. I'm not talking about the field. I turned to face him. He stood in the doorway, arms crossed. His eyes were calm, but cutting. He saw right through me. As if he'd already torn off the cover and started reading my pages. Do you like being compared? I asked. To Ryan? We're different, he said. He burns. I ruin. You just get to choose which you prefer. I stared at him as he stepped forward and braced one hand on the counter, leaning in just enough. I could smell him, woodsy, spiced. Just his presence near me made everything tremble. And what if I don't want to choose? Then you'd better be honest. With yourself. And with us. That night, I stepped out onto the balcony. The moon was low, nearly grazing the vineyard. I stood barefoot, wearing only a long tank top, hugging my arms for warmth. Then, soft footsteps behind me. I turned. Ryan. Can't sleep, he said. Me neither. He came closer. Didn't touch. Just stood there, beside me. As if he knew that even one wrong move would shatter the moment. I'm not asking you for anything, he said quietly. But if you ever want it, just look at me. I'll know. Then he left. Left his warmth in the air. And I stood there, not cold, but shaking. Because I realized. I wanted them both. In different ways. But just as much. And that was wrong. But it tasted too good to walk away. It started with a dream. I was standing in the middle of the vineyard. The vines swayed in the wind. The sky was dark, stained with red. Someone was calling my name, softly, like it came through water. I turned, but no one was there. Just a black figure between the rows, still and silent, like it had been cut out of the night itself. And I knew it wasn't Ryan. Or Nathan. It was something else. Something waiting. I woke up soaked in cold sweat, a tight knot in my throat. It was still dark outside. But sleep wouldn't return. I came down to breakfast later than usual. Margaret was already in the kitchen, calm, composed, wearing a crisp white shirt and dark jeans. She was slicing peaches, each cut smooth and precise, like a blade. Did you sleep well? She asked, without turning. Not really. The dreams came. I froze. She knew. Yeah. It's normal. This house talks to those who are ready to listen. Don't resist. Just remember. She handed me a plate of fruit, and for the first time, I felt something more in her presence. It wasn't just confidence. It was power. She wasn't just the owner of this house. She was its essence. Later that day, I was asked to clean out a storage room beneath the stairs. Dust hung in the air like fog. I sneezed my way through the shelves, wiping down old boxes, until I found a crate full of photos. Old, yellowed snapshots. One of them showed a younger Margaret, barely recognizable. Next to her, a man. He looked like Nathan. Almost identical. But softer. Different. Off. That's her brother, came a voice behind me. Ryan. He had appeared without a sound, as usual. His eyes flicked from the photo to my face. He died. He vanished. Years ago. After one of those full moon dinners, like the one on the hill. You say that like it's normal. Nothing here is normal, Claire. He took the photo, placed it back in the box, and closed the lid. You need to be careful. With her. With Nathan. With this place. I stared at him. There was no jealousy in his voice. Only warning. And that made it even scarier. By evening, the sky turned heavy with clouds. It smelled like a storm, but no rain came. I stood on the balcony, watching Nathan walk up the path with a lantern in hand. He stopped, looked up. We locked eyes, wordless. Come with me, he said when I reached him. He led me through the vineyard, past moss-covered posts and forgotten rows. Then we turned, off the path, into a part I'd never seen before. A small cottage, hidden among the vines. Nathan opened the door. Inside, an old wine map, aged books, candles. The air was thick with dust, incense, and wine. What is this place? I asked. This is where they used to meet. The ones who ran this land. Before Margaret. Before us all. Why bring me here? He stepped closer. His fingers brushed my cheek. Because you're already part of it. Because you're not here by accident. I took a step back. My head spun. Words swirled but refused to make sense. What are you saying? You feel things. You see. You had a dream, didn't you? I nodded, silently. He smiled, softly, almost sadly. So did I. But a long time ago. He moved in. His arms slid around my waist. Nothing here happens for no reason. Not even you. His lips were close, but this time, I pulled away. I don't know who to trust anymore. You. Ryan. Margaret, you all speak in riddles. We're not riddles. We're just already inside. You're still stepping in. I walked outside. The wind picked up. Leaves spun like dancers in a storm. And then I heard it. A voice. Margaret's voice, from the house. She was singing. Low. In a language I didn't understand. It sounded like a spell. Or a plea. But I didn't know who it was for. That night, I dreamed again. But this time, I wasn't alone. Nathan stood beside me. Ryan behind me, shirtless, eyes burning like fire. And in front of us, Margaret. Holding a bowl of wine. To enter, she said. You must give something up. What that is. You decide. I woke up screaming. And for the first time. I didn't want to be here. But it was too late. I was already inside. The storm they'd promised all day still hadn't come. The sky hung low and swollen, like time itself was holding its breath. The house was stifling. The air thick with the scent of coming rain, and wine not yet poured. Every sound made my skin jump. Every glance felt like a spark. Especially his. Nathan avoided me the entire day. Nowhere in the house. Nowhere on the grounds. Ryan, on the other hand, had become my shadow, quiet, tense, always just there. I didn't know which was more dangerous, the man who vanished into silence, or the one who stood too close to the edge. As the sun dipped low, I wandered down to the river. I needed space. Air. I sat on a rock by the water's edge, slipped off my shoes, and dipped my feet into the cool current. The quiet calmed me. But not for long. Footsteps. I knew who it was before he emerged from the trees. Still running? Ryan's voice was low, restrained. I'm not running. No? Then who disappears every time things get real? I stood. The wind slipped the strap of my dress off my shoulder. I pulled it back into place, refusing to meet his eyes. What do you want from me, Ryan? Everything. Or nothing. But not in between. He stepped closer. So close. His fingers brushed my arm, sliding up to my shoulder. The heat of that touch shot through my chest. I'm not yours, I whispered. Not yet. Then he kissed me. Not gently. Fully. Fiercely. His hands clutched my waist, pulling me into him like he couldn't wait a second longer. And I wanted it. All of it. My lips, my chest, my hips, they answered him before I could think. But in the next moment, he pulled back, sharp. Behind me, a voice. Perfect timing. I turned. Nathan. Soaked from the rain that had finally started, hair dripping, expression stone cold. You always show up too late, Ryan snapped. I show up, Nathan said, because I know how this ends. Oh yeah? And how's that? You destroy everything you touch. I stood between them, fists clenched at my sides, trying not to shake. But I was already trembling. Stop it, I said. This isn't a game. Nathan stepped toward me. No, Claire. It is a game. You just don't understand the stakes yet. He looked into my eyes. His hands never touched me. But it felt like he was holding my soul, steady, firm, terrifying. I can't, I whispered. You can, he said. And you already know what you want. I broke. I ran. Through the vines, down the dusty path, past barrels and lanterns. Into the house. Into my room. Into the fire in my chest. 10 minutes later, a knock. "It's me," Nathan's voice through the door. I opened it. He stepped in, drenched. Said nothing. Just pulled me into his arms. His hands were warm. Like fire in a fireplace. He held me. And it was enough to break me. I cried. We sat on the floor. I leaned into him. He stroked my hair. "Why didn't you leave before?" I asked. "Because I stayed for you." "How did you know I'd come?" He looked out the window. Lightning cracked over the hills. I didn't. But I hoped. This place, it doesn't let go of the ones meant to stay. And Ryan? He feels you slipping away. That's why he pulls so hard. I pressed closer to him. His hands moved along my back, my neck. His lips touched my forehead. My cheek. Then my mouth. This kiss wasn't wild. It was deep. Deliberate. Not about taking, but becoming. I let it happen. Not fully. But almost. Later, I stood at the mirror. There, faint on my skin, was a mark. Like the twist of a vine. And I knew. I had changed. There was no going back. There were no words. Only a look. He stood there, soaked like me, exhausted not from the rain, but from silence. From the weight of everything unsaid. He took a step forward. I didn't move back. I closed the door behind him. He watched me. Long deep. Like he was seeing me for the first time, or the last. "Are you sure?" he whispered, barely audible. I walked to him, took his hands, and pressed them to my chest. My heartbeat was loud. Steady. Thunderous. He felt it. He understood. He pulled me into him, fast, desperate. Like I was saving him. His kisses weren't just hungry, they were aching. Like he was kissing me for every night we hadn't spoken. His fingers traced my skin, sparking shivers that raced through me. Each touch left a mark I couldn't see, but felt. My skin burned. My body wanted him, no fear, no questions. Just him. He pressed me gently against the wall, and I gasped, from the rush, from the fire. My dress slipped from my shoulders, falling in a whisper to the floor. His hands were everywhere. His breath, in my ear, on my neck, along my spine. I had never known it could feel like this, to melt under someone's lips and not be afraid to surrender. We fell onto the bed. Sheets tangled. Bodies intertwined. In that moment, nothing else existed. Not the house. Not Ryan. Not even myself. Just him. Just us. We didn't hold back. It wasn't a game. It was a breaking point. Wild. Raw. Real. He knew what I needed. And gave it, fully, unapologetically. "You're mine," he whispered against my chest. "Only mine. Do you hear me?" I answered him, not with words, but with my body. With sound. With movement. This wasn't about romance. It was about truth. About skin and heat and surrender. No filter. No pretending. Outside, Ryan stood in the rain. He stared up at my window. The light was dim, but it was enough. Enough to know someone was in there. Enough to know who. He didn't move. Didn't yell. Just clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. He knew. He felt it. With every nerve in his body. What he feared losing. He was losing now. He couldn't hear the moans. He couldn't see my hands on Nathan's back. But he knew. Jealousy tore at him like a saw. He wanted to rip the door open, pull me out, remind me who touched me first. Remind me who I smiled at first. But he didn't move. The rain soaked him. His body froze. His heart burned. He was losing. Back inside, Nathan held my hand. His fingers brushed my wrist, like he was reading my pulse. Now you know, he whispered. I nodded. And whispered back. Now I feel it. The night was long. We didn't sleep. We couldn't. Again and again, we found each other in the heat. Like it might be the last time. We gave everything. No shame. No hesitation. By morning, Nathan was asleep, arms wrapped around my waist. And I lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Too many feelings. Too much of everything. And one terrible question. What if Ryan never forgives me? The morning after the storm felt strange. The air was fresh, but heavy. Like the vineyard had taken a deeper breath than ever before. Everything was quiet. Unnaturally so. No birds. No voices. Just silence. I stood on the balcony with a cup of strong coffee, still feeling the echoes of the night before. Nathan had left me, like he always did. Silent. But this time, something had changed. He'd either taken something from me, or left something behind. I went down to the kitchen. Margaret was there, waiting. In a white robe, damp hair hanging loose, like a statue just waking from a dream. Today's your day, she said. Day for what? She turned to me. There was softness in her eyes. And something like sadness. The day you find out the truth. And decide if you're ready to live with it. I didn't ask what she meant. I just followed her. We walked back to the hill. The same one where the full moon dinner had been held. Now, a circle of stones stood at the top. In the center, a wine bowl. When I was young, Margaret began, I made a choice too. To stay. To give myself to this place. To its spirit. It asks a lot. But it gives back. Eventually. If you're willing. Why me? Because you feel. You see. You know. You're not just my niece, Claire. You're connected to this place. By blood. Mine. And his. His? She touched the rim of the bowl with her fingertips. Nathan. He's not what he seems. He was part of my life long before you ever came. And he'll still be here, even if you leave. But he chose you. And that changes everything. I stepped back. My mind swirled. And Ryan? Ryan came here to forget. Instead, he found you. He loves you through his pain. Nathan, through his shadows. And you? Margaret smiled. Her eyes shimmered strangely. I'm the gatekeeper. I don't interfere. I only open the door. I went back to the house. Nathan was waiting in my room. Standing by the window. He didn't turn when I entered. You spoke to her, he asked. Yes. And what do you feel? That none of this makes sense. But it's mine. He turned. His eyes were calm now. Almost peaceful. I'm not asking you to stay. I just want you to know, I'm not the same man I was. Because of you. He stepped closer, took my hands. But if you go, I won't follow. I belong to this place. It doesn't let go of what's rooted in its soil. I nodded. My eyes stung. That evening, Ryan found me near the vines. His eyes were wild, full of desperation. Don't do this, he whispered. Don't stay. This place, it lies. Everything's a game. And you? I lost. And I don't want to watch you be next. He touched my cheek. His lips trembled. I would have taken you away. If I could. But you can't. No. He stepped back. Slowly. Like every step hurt. That night, I returned to the hill. Margaret was waiting. In her hands, the same bowl. Everything's ready, she said. All that's left is your answer. Will you stay? I looked down at the wine. The moon reflected in its surface. My heart pounded in my chest. I felt Nathan nearby. I knew Ryan still carried my name inside him. I closed my eyes. I'll stay. Margaret nodded. She lifted the bowl. I drank. And in that moment, the world changed. Like a curtain dropped. And for the first time, I saw everything as it truly was. Now, I write these words in my room. Morning has come. Outside, the vineyard. Nathan sleeps beside me. Ryan left in the night. And Margaret? Gone again. As always. I'm staying. Not because I have to. But because this is home. With all its shadows, its smells, its desire, its lies. I'm part of it now. Would you have stayed? And so, the story comes to an end. But the questions. They will echo in her mind for a long time. And what about you? Would you stay in a place where every touch is a temptation? And every feeling is like wine, intoxicating and dangerous? Could you choose between the one who burns, and the one who breaks? Would you give yourself to a house that asks for everything, but gives something deeper in return? Tell me in the comments. What choice would you have made? Nathan? Ryan, or would you have walked away? Subscribe to the channel if you love stories where passion, mystery, and raw emotion hold on tight, all the way to the final breath. More is coming. Bolder. More personal. More real. See you soon.